Should you sell your house right now in Rome, New York? Honestly, it depends. I have no clue. However, there are some key factors that'll definitely help you determine whether or not is the time. All right, so quickly, Cameron Stewart, eXp Realty, the Homes by Cameron Stewart real estate team here in Rome, New York, and covering the greater Oneida County area. Should you sell your house right now in Rome, New York? We're going to talk a little bit about some key factors that are going to help you determine that. I do want to start this video by saying some of you bought 20 years ago and have a ton of equity. Some of you bought a year and a half ago and may not have as much equity as you'd like in order to sell. The ultimate decision is going to come from you whether it's time or not, which is why I mentioned right at the top of this video, it depends, a lot depends, okay? However, there are three dynamic factors that I believe have a huge influence over that, okay? And we're gonna discuss those today in this video. So number one, do you have equity worth cashing out? We're gonna look at some numbers directly in Rome here, okay? So in Rome, New York, we have seen another 10% increase in average sales price year over year, and this has been the case for 4 or 5 years now since the onset of COVID and the new market we've seen from that. So the actual numbers are, I have them right here, and broke the numbers down into two categories here. All homes in Rome, no matter what price they sold for, and then homes that sold for $100,000 or more, okay? So in the 100,000 or more category in Rome, year over year, 24 to 25, 8.95% increase in average sales price, all right? Now, for all homes, regardless of what they sold for, 10,000, 70,000, 580,000, that price went up from 2024 to 2025 here in Rome, 11.97%. So between 8.95% and 11.97% increase in just 1 year in the average sale price in Rome. Now, once again, some of you purchased 20 years ago, some of you purchased just 2 years ago. The good news is if you purchased a year ago and you bought for market value, you should be able to cover real estate commissions and some other fees, which we're going to talk about later in this video, to be able to sell, okay? Because 10% increase, as long as you bought within market value a year ago, you should be in position to at least break even on selling your home should you need to. What's the key takeaway? Well, if you've owned your home for several years, you are well above a 10% increase in equity. So as long as you haven't taken any second mortgages out or new lien positions, you should be sitting on a good amount of equity in your home. Number two, will you price your home correctly? Now listen, I understand this is a issue of contention between real estate agents and sellers all the time, okay? Sellers want to know what they can sell their house for. Agents want to be able to list it for a price that's actually going to sell. Agents have a vested interest in selling your house at a higher price because generally speaking, we're going to receive a commission based on the price of the home. So the higher we sell the home for, the more we make. However, I wanted to discuss one very important statistic from here in Rome because I think it points to how very important it is to list your home at an appropriate price when you introduce it to the market. So today's statistic we're going to be reviewing is sales price versus original listing price. And let me break this down just a little bit, all right? Sales price as a percentage versus the original listing price, meaning if you had a home that you originally listed for $200,000 and you wound up selling it for $150,000, your sales price to original listing price would be 75%. Now, it doesn't matter whether you sold it at $150 and it was listed at $200, or whether you dropped in price to $160 and then sold at $150. The sales price versus original listing price is just that, the original listing price. Adversely, if you list a home for $200,000 and it sells for $250,000, your sales price versus original listing price would be 125%. Okay, so this is a measure of how much you receive for the sale based upon the original listing price when you introduced it to the market. And what we've done is we've separated into two categories in Rome over the last year. Category 1, homes that sold in 29 days or less. And category 2, homes that took 30 days or more to sell. And folks, there are some drastic differences here. All right, so we'll look at the homes that took 30 days or more to sell. 86.56% of their original list price. That means these sellers took roughly a 14% discount on their house, and it took 30 or more days to sell. Now let's look at the other category here, and we have homes that sold in less than 30 days, or 100.39% of their list price. So not only did they sell quickly, but they sold for, on average, over the price that they introduced to the market. If there's ever been a statistic to shine light on how important it is to price your home According to market standards, this is it. If you price your home too high, you're not only going to spend more time on the market, but you're likely going to sell for less than what you would have if you introduced it to the market at an appropriate price to begin with. Buyers today know their market. They will wait for price adjustments and they'll think to themselves, what is wrong with this house if it's listed too high? And before we continue, I want to urge you that if you're interested in understanding the value of your home currently, I offer that service for free. Simply click the link in this video, fill out your information, and you'll get a free automatic home valuation. You can talk to me even further and we can dive deeper into some good numbers specifically for your home that are a little bit better than the computer modulation of it. All right, and number 3 is, do you know the true cost of selling? So obviously we have realtor commissions. That's the big one. That's the one everyone's worrying about. You're generally going to pay 6% for your real estate commissions, but I want to dive into the auxiliary costs, because that's a question I get a lot. Cameron, what am I going to pay the attorney? What am I going to pay in taxes? What am I going to pay for all these other things? And we're going to break that down for you. So once again, number 1, we have realtor commissions, all right, generally 6%. The next thing we have is an attorney fee. Now the going rate right now, which is March of 2026, you're generally looking somewhere around $1,200 for a real estate transaction to take you from contract to closing. That is the direct attorney fee. Next, we have abstract and title charges. Okay, so the abstract is the document which allows you to convey your property to someone else. All right, so your deed proves ownership. Your abstract goes through the chain of custody or chain of command from when the property was first apportioned. Generally, in this area, it's the late 1700s. For example, the Scriba patent, everything north of the lake was just one piece of land. It's been broken down. These abstracts go over all of that, okay? They track it from day one to now to make sure that there's no one in the past that can claim ownership. They take that abstract, and that document allows the bank to have reassurance knowing that there's not going to be anyone else to come forward to claim the property, okay? So abstracting and title fees are next. It depends on whether you have your abstract and they're building off an existing one, or if you don't have your abstract and they have to build an entirely new one. The costs are going to vary. I would say I have clients who pay $400 to $500 for a simple abstract update. I've seen clients pay $2,000 for an abstract because it was lost in a flood or something like that, and they just don't have it or they misplaced it. So abstracting costs can vary depending on whether you have that or not, but a good way of thinking about it is $400, $500, $600 if you're just updating your abstract and there's nothing challenging in there. Transfer taxes. This is the direct sales tax per se on selling a home. Now, let me be clear, disclaimer, I am not an accountant. You can, may, and will pay income tax on the sale of your house. There's a lot of different factors in there. Consult your accountant, okay, and your tax professional, which I am not. However, we are going to talk about just the transfer taxes, okay? And transfer taxes are technically $2 for every $500 worth of sale price. Easier to think about it as $4 per thousand, okay, plus a $45 filing fee. So what that means is if you sell a $250,000 home, take 250 base units because of $1,000, times that by 4 is $1,000 total, okay? And from there, you add on $45. So to sell a $250,000 home, the transfer tax on that would be just about $1,045. So in my opinion, I think that's relatively cheap compared to some of the other taxes we pay here in New York, okay? Don't tell New York, they might get wise to it and raise it up. Mortgage payoff fees. Obviously, if you have an existing mortgage, whether it's your primary mortgage, whether it's a home equity line of credit, you're going to need to pay that off. I think that's generally understood, but wanted to mention that here today. You will have to pay your mortgage off. Overdue property taxes. Now, property taxes are prorated, meaning they're going to be based upon the daily usage of those taxes. The attorneys are going to figure out what taxes have been paid, what taxes haven't. They're going to figure out how many days you've lived there. They're going to come with a prorated amount. You may have to pay some of that. You generally get a refund back at closing because you've already paid your taxes, assuming you have, of course. If you've already paid them and you're selling them a month before the next tax bill is due, you will get that for example, 30 days in this situation. You'll get that back, okay? So your taxes are prorated. You may pay some more into it. If you owe a little bit, you may get some back. It really all depends on the situation. And one that talked about very often is recording fees / postal fees, all right? So your attorney is not going to send an overnight to the county or to another party in the contract, and they're not going to pay for it themselves, of course, all right? So they're going to charge you if they're sending seller documents to you. They're going to charge you if they're sending documents on your behalf to the county. A lot of times this can amount to a couple $100s in a transaction, but those are there. They can be there. You should prepare for them. Now, most sellers in Rome and anywhere else are going to have most of these expenses on their statement of sale. You might see more, you may not see some of these depending on where you live. Here in Rome, we have water and sewer directly in our taxes. So in that tax proration, you'll have that amount in there. So you're not going to see something directly from there. But if you live outside of the city of Rome, you may see some of those fees as well. But remember, every home transaction is like a snowflake. Everyone's different. So this is not a hard and fast rule. So now it all comes back to, should I sell my house in Rome right now? And once again, folks, it really depends. But in today's video, we went over, do you have enough equity in your house? Will you be cashing out on anything? That's super important to know. Are you willing to price it correctly? This is a big one. If you're not willing to price it correctly, then you might not sell. Some homes sit on the market for quite some time and ultimately expire or withdraw because they're at a price point in which the market is not interested in. Will you price your home appropriately? And number 3, do the costs of selling make sense for you to sell right now? We went over some of the costs associated in selling outside of just realtor commissions. And if they don't make sense for you, they don't make sense. And folks, if you're interested in getting down to the bottom of what your home is worth today, whether you're considering selling now or whether you're considering selling in the future or whether you're just curious, reach out to me, please, because I am happy to provide you a free home valuation. In fact, click the link in the description of this video. It'll take you right to the page where you can fill out your information and request your free home valuation. Now, if you received some value in this video, please hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. I'm routinely coming out with more content to help educate buyers and sellers on the ins and outs of real estate. My name is Cameron Stewart with the Homes by Cameron Stewart Real Estate Team, powered by eXp Realty. Until next time.